Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today, I will be going through all three of the X'd Out Sugar Skull books from Charles Burns. I've had two of these. I didn't have Sugar Skull hanging around. I picked them up used here and there. I read these a long time ago from a library or something, and always loved the art and the coloring on it. Always loved Charles Burns' stuff, but hadn't reread them. Was waiting until I stumbled across the Sugar Skull. But when I read Final Cut and was disappointed in it the way I was, I wanted to go back and reread all of these. So I got Sugar Skull and reread these, and I think I'm going to go back and read Black Hole as well because I want to really revisit Charles Burns more thoroughly. I know he's got a lot more work than these three, but these are the big three projects. So picking this back up. The first time I read it, I didn't realize that it had so much Tintin influence. I was at a conference where they were talking about like swiping, and that this book had a lot of intentional swiping in it, and that was part of the story. There was a lot of Tintin swipes. I just started reading Tintin as well, so I don't have enough Tintin knowledge in my bank to make those associations, but it's pretty obvious with the way that the main character here, Doug, looks, that there's a reference to Tintin. And then he's got, instead of Snowy, he's got Inky the black cat instead of the little white dog. So kind of a reverse of Tintin in a way. But right out the gate, we're dumped into Charles Burns's like dark David Lynch surrealism, and he's going to go into this hole in the wall, into this strange world on the other side. As Charles Burns will do, he will have some very physically uncomfortable body horror moments. So this nasty like piece of meat hanging here that the guy pulls out this crying, screaming little worm and eats it. This is Charles Burns at his best. It's uncomfortable. I don't necessarily like experiencing it, but I think this is where he excels, is in the kind of dark, strange surrealism. Really do like his work in color, even though he's so good in black and white. I really like the way he colors his work as well. Then we wake up into the real world, I think is what this is. And we meet Doug in the real world, and you see that Doug is someone who's had a head injury. He's taking some medications, and you see that like with the Final Cut book, that he's kind of an outsider guy who's got this fantastic, grotesque interior life. So very thematically similar in that. There's a girl he finds interesting, all of those typical like Charles Burns tropes. In this book, though, he's kind of stuck in his head, whereas in Final Cut, there was like some hope that someone else could share that experience, even though it got taken away. Really creepy here, where he goes upstairs and there's like a strange altar to this girl that he was just talking to, and she's like feeding a pig that's in a vitrine. So just more of that really unsettling. It's like simple, doesn't need special effects or anything really, but super unsettling set design. You get a picture of who Doug is as an artist and where the Tintin looking character comes from. This is a mask that he wears, and he does performances called cut-ups, where he's basically doing like cut-up poetry, cutting out and mixing together stuff from other texts. And obviously it's not going over well. You can see that he's this outcast character, typical again of Burns. There's a number of panels, sequences throughout the series where there's just this interspersion of black and colored panels. I like it. I don't know what it's about. It looks cool. And I really like seeing here where you see Burns draw from a photograph. I think his style is very well suited to that kind of approach. And it's interesting to see him do it. I enjoy that mode. Here we're introduced to Sarah, the girl that was in the photo that Doug found. And now she's engaging him as an artist, and you can see she's like cutting her arm open in front of him. So they're going to get engaged just in some weird dark stuff. Again, typical of Burns, like a girl that brings you into a weird dark place. And then this final panel here, it shows Burns working in a mode that I think is really different for him. Not being in a forest at night with the dark, like seeing this completely open, no spotted blacks, like clean line, linear perspective, imagining it a city, and it's really cool. It's really nice. So it shows that this is an artist that has a wider range than he's using, which is fine. Like every story calls for a certain look, and so you want to constrain to that look. But it is a bit of a bummer when I'm looking at these series and I'm coming off of Final Cut and being critical that this is an artist who really, other than adding color, hasn't grown much since Black Hole in terms of theme and in terms of art. It's a bit frustrating to see that there is a potential for something totally different in there, and it's just never being accessed because the artist keeps going back to like this scab that they have to keep picking at. Here's another one of those cool, just like black and color rectangle pages. Don't know what they are, but I like the way they look. Pretty fun here in this sequence where Doug is in bed. Doug is reading Knit Knit, The Secret of the Hive. I don't know if this came out before or after Henriette Valium's Knit Knit book. So I don't know if this is just a joke that Burns was making about Tintin, or if he'd seen the Knit Knit stuff from Henriette Valium, or if Henriette Valium saw this and went and made one. I'm not sure, but the cover of this book is the panel from the previous book. It's that long shot panel of the city. So it's obviously not the same book, but the idea of Knit Knit rather than Tintin is interesting. So you see that this is a book that Doug is reading, and he's, because of whatever head wound happened to him, getting kind of mixed up in his reality. As Doug and Sarah get to know each other, he finds out that Sarah's a fan of old romance comics. And these ones are pretty screwed up in the descriptions of them, but you'll see that this is where Burns definitely had a chance to go recreate some of the old romance comics that he enjoyed as a kid. So swiping panels that he liked. I particularly like the inclusion of like this alien text in the text panels. That makes it more compelling as like an alien document, like this manga from a strange world. It's kind of fun. Manga illustrated by John Romita. In this, Doug and Sarah are flipping through this binder full of images that Sarah's collected. And this one here is Elise Bourgeois, so referencing some people from the fine art world. And you see down there that they start getting into opiates, so that goes back to earlier. He was taking those pills, waking up from that dream world. Like with a lot of I would say all of Charles Burns' work, there's always this kind of like veil over the story where you're not totally going to understand everything. It is like David Lynch in the sense that you can't expect total resolution of everything. So that's fine by me. I like kind of an open mystery, Donnie Darko, where everything doesn't always make sense. And that's definitely in this book, like the relationship between all of these different past, present, future, and imaginary worlds gets a little mixed up for me, but sometimes I'm not the most cautious reader either. There's a really uncomfortable moment in here where Doug's been taking all these pictures of Sarah in the nude and in these weird situations. She takes some really just vulnerable and sweet pictures of him asleep, and he's really weirded out by it. So it's kind of interesting to, like, in all the other sexual stuff that's been shown in the book being darker, it's all kind of accepted, but this, which is a little bit softer because there wasn't permission, feels very rapey. And like that just idea of personal privacy invasion as like an issue on its own is an interesting thought. And the way it's presented in this book with everything else makes it more potent. And then we get these fun little sugar skulls at the end. And this almost looks like something straight out of a Kotaro book to me, almost, actually. That just occurred to me. But yeah, this looks like a Mizuki piece to me, especially this character here. This character feels very Mizuki yokai to me. But again, we got a road to go down, so the journey is going to continue into the third volume, and we've just been handed the magic sugar skull. You can see also from the covers of these that Doug is aging in each one. So we have him, and he's getting pudgier as well. So I like that this is like following a character as he ages quite a bit. The opening sequence to the third book is very similar to the opening sequence of Final Cut, where you got the guy at the desk kind of seen from the desk angle and then looking over the shoulder there. There's a bit of a justification for Burns's own way of working in this sequence here where Sarah is telling Doug, she's talking to him about the predictability of these stories. After you get past the surface details, all the stories are pretty much the same. But I don't care. For some reason, I never get tired of reading them. And you can tell that that's Burns talking about his own interest in these romance comics. I just read that other one that he put out, Undying Love, I think, that just came out, that was just a black and white romance comic. That's obviously like what he loves the most. And so that's him talking about that he doesn't care. And I think that's a bit of applied to his own art as well, is like, I don't care if it's kind of the same thing over and over again. Like, I never get tired of making them, instead never get tired of reading them. Unfortunately for me, like, I want to see an artist expand a little bit more, but I can't critique someone for doing what they intended to do. He is doing exactly what he intended to do. And then this shows Sally and Doug now older. You see that they've been together for a while. I, again, really like seeing Burns draw from photographs. I think the way his style works really nice with photorealism. Really like this Bacon album cover here. That's pretty funny. This sequence here is really uncomfortable to me. And I just, this is the thing in Burns's work where I feel like he is just picking at something that it feels like he's dealing with the trauma of some kind over and over again. Like the specific types of darknesses that get into his work, and that it's always around like a certain age range, and it's always around like young love and sexuality. It just feels like someone dealing with something. And in this sequence here, we have Doug find these old photos where Sarah was involved in, like, you can see from them that they're very violent, kind of gross pornographic art that she was making, where she's like kissing this weird little pig and stuff. That whole altar that he had found upstairs in the first book, that series, and he's very uncomfortable about it, and she obviously doesn't want him looking at it. And then he goes in the shower and is like, oh, it's okay, baby, don't worry, we're gonna be all right, I still love you, blah blah. And then he's like, hey, you feel good, bend over a little bit. And the timing on that just seems really awful to me. That like he's supposed to be comforting her, and instead he got riled up about the things she's embarrassed about in her past. And she obviously is not appreciating what he's doing either. So I don't know, just uncomfortable little sequence there. Then we've got this really gross but really well done sequence where we've got this egg thing popping out and breaking open with the yolk. This looks a lot like the egg that's on that one Tintin that we did talk about, the Tintin and a black star. So I think that's where he's getting this weird nasty egg thing from. And then some David Lynch red curtains, some Charles Burns at his best, super nasty, gross, dark, sewer, weird, corrupt world. Again, I like seeing him draw these fantastical cities. And now we're even older, and we're looking back on Danny here. This is their son. We have Doug and Sarah much older, and we meet their son, Danny. So I like that in this one, there's a little bit of a moving on as well, versus in Final Cut where they stay in their youth. I like that in this, that they do grow up and get older a little bit. But it doesn't seem like there was much resolution in that. It seems like the characters, like here, Doug's, no, I'm not listening. I'm not even here. Like, I'm still in this mental world. So I don't know, maybe that's just how Charles Burns feels, like he's just checked out in this fantastical world of his, and it makes life and relationships hard for him. Like, that's just kind of what I get by reading his books. And in that case, it's like, I don't know, man, if you've got all these beautiful fantastical worlds in you, like, I want to see those. All of this stuff with the depressed teenagers is all great and cool, but I don't know, like, all this book, Final Cut, it seems like it's being made by someone with a rich world that they really want to let other people into, and instead they just keep talking about letting people into it instead of just letting people into them. So that's where I'm at with Charles Burns's work for right now. I'm gonna have to go back and read Black Hole. I read Undying Love, and I just didn't find anything in there to even be worth commenting on. So, like with this last bit here, uh, I'm too tired to keep going. I've got to rest for a little while. So I will get to Black Hole. I think I just gonna take a little break from Charles Burns because it just, I don't know, kind of, as much as I love it, as beautiful as I think it is, and as much as I admire him as an artist, like the content kind of just bums me out. One or two of these would be cool, but by the time you get to a whole career's worth, yeah, just it's kind of sad.
Standa heitir Yggdrasill Árbáð Marey sin hvíta hári Þaðan koma döggvar þeir síðala falla stendre í vígrödd urðarbrunni Ask veit ég standa heitir Yggdrasill Árbáð Marey sin hvíta hári Þaðan koma döggvar þeir síðala falla stendre í vígrödd urðarbrunni Ask veit ég standa heitir Yggdrasill Árbáð Marey sin